The first time my wife smiled at him, I pretended not to notice. That was my mistake. His name was Victor Lang, 46 years old, divorced, owned 3 luxury car dealerships around Scottsdale, Arizona. The kind of man who wore expensive watches casually and somehow looked relaxed all the time, like life had personally apologized to him years ago. He moved into the mansion directly across from our modest 2-story house in late June. The first thing he unloaded wasn't furniture. It was a red Ferrari. My son Mason nearly lost his mind. "Dad, look at that car." I stood in the driveway after finishing a 12-hour warehouse shift, sweat soaking through my work shirt, while Victor casually stepped out wearing sunglasses and a white polo that probably cost more than my grocery budget. My wife Lauren walked outside carrying lemonade. And then I saw it. That look. Not lust exactly. Curiosity. Interest. The kind of look people get when they suddenly realize another version of life exists. Victor smiled politely. "Beautiful neighborhood," he said. Lauren smiled back. "Welcome to Arizona." Meanwhile, I stood there smelling like cardboard boxes and forklift exhaust. I worked 2 jobs back then. Warehouse during the day, Uber at night. 80-hour weeks sometimes. Not because I was ambitious. Because inflation was killing us. Mortgage payments kept climbing. Mason needed braces. Lauren's mother had medical bills piling up in Nevada. Every month felt like trying to stop a sinking boat with duct tape. I kept telling myself the sacrifice would be temporary, that one day things would calm down. But exhaustion changes people, especially marriages. By August, Victor somehow became part of our daily lives. It started small, borrowing tools, waving across the street. Then came dinners. One night, he invited us over for steaks cooked by a private chef. A private chef. I remember standing in his backyard staring at the infinity pool glowing blue under the desert sunset, while Lauren laughed harder than I'd heard in months. Victor handed me a glass of expensive whiskey. "Tough week?" he asked casually. I laughed tiredly. "Try tough year." He nodded like he understood struggle despite standing inside a house worth $6 million. That annoyed me instantly. But Lauren loved talking to him. Not because of the money, because he listened. That was the dangerous part. While I spent my life rushing between jobs and bills, Victor somehow always had time. Time to ask Lauren about her photography hobby. Time to compliment her cooking. Time to notice when she changed her hair. Meanwhile, I was forgetting anniversaries because I was too exhausted to remember what day it even was. One night around midnight, after finishing Uber driving, I came home and found Lauren sitting alone on the porch. She looked beautiful in the warm Arizona heat. Tired, but beautiful. I sat beside her quietly. "You okay?" She hesitated too long before answering. "Do you ever feel like we're surviving instead of living?" That sentence hit me harder than any insult could have. Because deep down, I knew exactly what she meant. I rubbed my face tiredly. "I'm doing everything I can." "I know. Then what else do you want from me?" Lauren looked down at her wine glass. "I want my husband back." That should have been my warning. Instead, I got defensive. "I'm killing myself for this family. And I appreciate that." But tears filled her eyes immediately. "But I miss you." I wanted to answer. I really did. But my phone buzzed. Another Uber ride request. Extra $30 if I accepted immediately. I stared at the screen for 2 seconds too long. And Lauren noticed. That hurt expression on her face stayed with me long after I drove away that night. 3 weeks later, Mason asked me something over breakfast that made my stomach drop. "Dad, why does Mom go swimming at Mr. Victor's house when you're working?" I almost dropped my coffee cup. Mason sat at the kitchen counter eating cereal, completely unaware that he had just cracked open the worst fear living in the back of my mind. "What did you say?" He shrugged casually. "Mom swims at Victor's house sometimes." Lauren froze near the sink. Not dramatically, just enough. That tiny pause told me more than words ever could. "When?" I asked carefully. Mason kept eating. "Mostly when you're driving Uber." Silence swallowed the kitchen. Lauren finally forced a laugh. "Oh my God, seriously? Mason, it's not like that." I looked at her slowly. "Then what's it like?" She crossed her arms immediately. Defensive already. "Victor invited me over to use the pool. That's it. Without telling me. You're barely home, Daniel." That answer irritated me instantly. "So now you hang out with rich divorced guys while I'm working?" Lauren's face hardened. "I sit by a pool for an hour because it's 110 degrees outside. With him, he's usually working. Usually." That word lodged itself deep inside my chest. I grabbed my keys for the warehouse without another word. Daniel, I'm late. Truthfully, I wasn't late. I just couldn't stand looking at her anymore. The warehouse felt unbearable that day. Every forklift beep echoed inside my skull while my imagination tortured me nonstop. Lauren by the pool. Victor bringing her drinks. Victor listening to her laugh. Victor noticing things about her I had stopped noticing years ago. By lunchtime, I realized something terrifying. I wasn't angry because I thought my wife was cheating. I was angry because part of me understood why she'd want to escape. That made everything worse. Around 6 that evening, I finally drove home exhausted and dehydrated from Arizona heat. The Ferrari sat parked across the street, gleaming under sunset light, like some giant middle finger aimed directly at my life. Lauren was cooking pasta when I walked inside. She tried acting normal. Failed immediately. You hungry? I tossed my work gloves onto the counter. Did you swim today? Her shoulders tightened. Yes. With Victor? He was home for maybe 10 minutes. I stared at her. You really think this looks okay? Lauren spun around sharply. You know what? I'm tired of defending myself for every tiny thing. Tiny thing. You're acting like I slept with him. You hiding it from me didn't help. I didn't hide it. Mason told me. That shut her up. For a second, guilt flashed across her face. Then came the sentence that started the real fight. You're never here anyway. I laughed once in disbelief. There it is. It's true. I'm working 2 jobs for this family, and I'm alone all the time. Her voice cracked hard enough to shake me. The room went silent afterward, because underneath all the anger sat an ugly truth both of us already knew. Our marriage had become logistical. Bills, schedules, stress, repeat. No dates, no intimacy, no actual time together. Just survival. Lauren wiped her eyes angrily. You know what Victor does every morning? I frowned immediately. What? He drinks coffee outside with no phone in his hand. I stared at her like she'd lost her mind. That's your argument? No, she whispered. My argument is that he actually seems alive. That one hurt. Badly. Because lately I felt more like a machine than a husband. That night I skipped Uber driving for the first time in months. I sat beside Lauren on the couch while some reality show played quietly in the background. Neither of us spoke much. At one point she rested her head against my shoulder like she used to years ago. I almost forgot about Victor entirely. Then headlights swept across the living room window. The Ferrari. Lauren looked automatically. Tiny movement. Barely noticeable. But I saw it. And suddenly I realized something dangerous had already started between them. Maybe not physically. Maybe not yet. But emotionally, I was already losing her. 2 nights later, around 11:30, I finished an airport Uber pickup early and decided to surprise Lauren by coming home instead of taking more rides. The house was dark, empty. At first I thought she might have gone to bed with Mason. Then I noticed the backyard gate slightly open. Pool lights glowed faintly from across the street. And standing near Victor's infinity pool was my wife. I stood there across the street staring through the dark like some stranger spying on his own life. Lauren sat beside Victor near the edge of the glowing infinity pool with her feet dangling in the water. She wore jeans and one of my old gray hoodies, arms wrapped around a wine glass, while Victor leaned back casually in a patio chair. Neither of them touched. That somehow made it worse. Because what I saw didn't look like flirting. It looked comfortable, intimate, like 2 people who had already built a private little world together. I watched Lauren laugh softly at something he said. That laugh hit me hard. I hadn't heard it directed at me in months. For a second, I considered turning around and driving away before they noticed me. Instead, I crossed the street. Gravel crunched under my boots loud enough that Lauren turned immediately. Her face changed the second she saw me. Guilt. Victor stayed calm. Of course he did. Daniel, he said smoothly, standing up. Didn't know you were home. I ignored him completely. What are you doing here? Lauren stood too quickly. We were just talking. At midnight. Victor lifted his wine calmly. It's Arizona, my friend. Nobody sleeps before midnight here. I finally looked at him directly. I'm not your friend. That wiped the smile off his face for about 2 seconds. Then it returned. Fair enough. Lauren stepped toward me carefully. Please don't do this. That sentence instantly pissed me off. Do what? Cause a scene. I laughed harshly. Oh, I'm the one causing scenes now. Victor raised both hands slightly like some calm therapist. Daniel, nothing inappropriate is happening. I stared at him. You really expect me to believe that? Yes. The confidence in his answer rattled me more than if he'd denied it nervously. Lauren looked exhausted suddenly. I just needed someone to talk to. And your rich neighbor was the only option? You're never around. There it is again. Her voice cracked instantly. Because it's true. The words echoed across the pool water. I looked at her standing there beside another man's $1 million backyard while I still wore my warehouse uniform stained with sweat and dust. And suddenly I felt humiliated. Not just betrayed. Small. Victor quietly stepped backward. I should probably head inside. You should have stayed inside, I snapped. Lauren closed her eyes. Daniel. No, I said quietly. I want to hear this. I looked directly at her. What exactly are you talking to him about that you can't talk to your husband about? Lauren's eyes filled with tears immediately. Everything. That one word nearly knocked the air out of me. Everything. Bills. Stress. Loneliness. Dreams she stopped sharing with me because I was always too exhausted to listen. Victor looked uncomfortable now for the first time all night. Good. He should have been. Lauren wiped her face angrily. You come home tired every night. You barely touch me anymore. Half the time you fall asleep holding your phone because you're trying to pick up extra rides. I'm doing that for us. I know. Then why am I standing here watching my wife drink wine with another man? Silence. Victor finally spoke carefully. She's lonely, Daniel. I turned toward him so fast my body moved before my brain did. Don't. He held my stare calmly. You think money is why she's here? You telling me it isn't? No, he said quietly. I think she misses feeling noticed. That sentence cut deeper than I expected because part of me already knew it was true. Lauren started crying softly, and suddenly I realized something horrifying. She wasn't defending me anymore. She was defending him. I stepped backward slowly. Did you sleep with him? Lauren looked shocked. What? No. But she answered too quickly, too emotionally. Victor stayed silent, and somehow his silence scared me most of all. I nodded slowly. Okay. Lauren frowned immediately. What does that mean? It means I don't believe either of you anymore. Then I walked away before she could stop me. I slept in my truck that night parked outside a 24-hour gas station, drinking burnt coffee while my entire life replayed in my head. Around 3 in the morning my phone buzzed. A text from Lauren. Please come home. I stared at the screen for a long time before replying. Are you in love with him? The typing bubble appeared instantly, then disappeared, appeared again, and finally, nothing. Lauren barely spoke to me the next morning. Neither did I. We moved around each other inside the kitchen like strangers renting the same house. Mason noticed immediately, even though we both tried pretending everything was normal. Kids always know. That afternoon, while I loaded boxes into trucks at the warehouse, my phone buzzed. A text from Lauren. Victor invited us to his cabin in Sedona this weekend. Mason really wants to go. I stared at the message in disbelief. My fingers tightened around the phone. Even after last night, even after I asked if she loved him, she still wanted to spend the weekend with him. I typed 3 different angry responses before finally sending. I have work. 3 dots appeared immediately. You could take 1 weekend off. I laughed bitterly under my breath. 1 weekend off. Like bills magically paused because rich people wanted vacations. I replied, some of us don't have that luxury. She didn't answer. That evening I came home exhausted and found Mason practically bouncing off the walls. Dad, Victor rented ATVs, and there's a movie theater inside the cabin. I forced a smile for him. That sounds fun, buddy. You're coming too, right? The hope in his voice twisted something inside my chest. Before I could answer, Lauren walked into the room. Your dad's busy. Mason's face fell immediately. Oh, that tiny disappointed expression nearly broke me. Because suddenly I realized something terrifying. Victor wasn't just replacing me with my wife. He was becoming the fun version of a father my son barely got from me anymore. Friday morning they left without me. I stood in the driveway after finishing a night of Uber rides, while Victor's black Range Rover waited outside our house. Lauren hugged Mason goodbye, while Victor loaded suitcases into the trunk like some perfect movie husband. Then Lauren walked toward me. We'll be back Sunday. I nodded coldly. She hesitated. Daniel. What? Her eyes looked tired. I wish you would have come. I stared at her for several seconds before answering quietly. I don't think there's room for me anymore. The hurt on her face was immediate, but she didn't deny it. That was the worst part. The house felt dead after they left. Silent. Empty. I spent the weekend working both jobs nonstop because sitting alone with my thoughts felt unbearable. Saturday night around 11, after dropping off an Uber passenger near downtown Phoenix, I made the mistake of checking Instagram. Victor had posted photos from Sedona, Mason smiling on an ATV, Lauren standing beside Red Canyon cliffs wearing a white sundress I hadn't seen in years. And one picture nearly destroyed me. Victor and Lauren sitting beside an outdoor fire pit laughing at something off camera. No touching, no kissing, but the comments underneath said everything. You two look amazing together. Beautiful couple. Thought Victor swore off relationships. I stared at the screen so long my Uber app timed out. For the first time since all this started, rage completely overtook sadness. I called Lauren immediately. She answered after 3 rings. Hey, what the hell is this? Silence. Then, Daniel, you let him post photos like you're his girlfriend? It's not like that. Really? Because the internet seems confused. I heard wind on the other end of the phone. Lauren sounded exhausted. You're overreacting. That sentence lit me on fire. I'm overreacting. My wife's on vacation with another man while I'm driving strangers around at midnight trying to pay our electric bill. Victor invited Mason. And you. Silence again. Then quietly. He makes me feel happy. The words hit like a baseball bat straight to the ribs. For a second I couldn't even speak. Finally I whispered, what about me? Lauren's voice cracked instantly. That's the problem, Daniel. I don't even know if you see me anymore. Then she hung up. I sat parked under a gas station light staring at my phone while Arizona heat pressed against the windows. And for the first time in my marriage, I honestly thought I might lose my wife. Lauren came home Sunday evening acting like everything was normal. That almost made it worse. Mason ran inside excitedly carrying souvenirs from Sedona while talking nonstop about hiking trails, ATVs, and the movie room inside Victor's cabin. I stood in the kitchen listening to my son describe another man's perfect weekend while exhaustion sat deep inside my bones. Lauren unpacked quietly, carefully, like she was walking through a minefield. At one point, Mason held up a framed photo Victor had bought for him at some tourist shop. It showed all 3 of them standing together near the canyon overlook. Victor in the middle, Lauren beside him smiling, Mason between them. They looked like a family. I had to turn away. That night after Mason fell asleep, Lauren found me sitting alone at the dining table, staring at unpaid bills spread across the wood surface. Credit cards, electric bill, mortgage reminder, real life waiting patiently while rich people played happiness in the desert. Lauren sat across from me quietly. We need to talk. I laughed bitterly. Usually not a great sentence. She didn't smile. That weekend made me realize something. My stomach tightened instantly. Here it comes. The breakup speech. The confession. Maybe both. Instead, she whispered, I don't know who I am anymore. I frowned slightly. What's that supposed to mean? Tears filled her eyes immediately. I used to feel alive, Daniel. The sadness in her voice sounded genuine. Now every day just feels like surviving. I rubbed my forehead tiredly. You think I enjoy this? No. Then why does it feel like I'm being punished for trying to keep us afloat? Lauren looked down at the bills. Because somewhere along the way, we stopped being husband and wife. That sentence sat heavy between us. Because neither of us could deny it anymore. We had become co-workers managing stress together. Not partners. Not lovers. Just survivors. Lauren reached across the table slowly. I never planned for feelings to happen. The second she said feelings, my chest tightened. Feelings. She closed her eyes briefly. I'm trying to be honest. Are you in love with him? Silence. That terrifying silence again. Finally. I don't know. I stood up immediately. Chair scraping hard against the floor. That's unbelievable. Daniel. No. You don't get to say you don't know after 15 years together. Lauren started crying instantly. I'm confused. You're not confused, I snapped. You're enjoying attention from a millionaire while your husband kills himself trying to pay bills. That's not fair. Fair. I laughed harshly. You went on vacation with another man. Her face hardened suddenly. At least he wanted me there. The second those words left her mouth, both of us froze. Because she hadn't meant to say them out loud. But it was too late now. I felt something inside me crack quietly. Not explode. Just crack. Like glass finally giving up under pressure. I walked upstairs without another word. Around midnight, I went into our bathroom to grab aspirin for a headache that felt like somebody drilling into my skull. That's when I saw it. A bracelet sitting beside Lauren's makeup bag. Diamond. Elegant. expensive enough to probably cover 3 months of our mortgage. I picked it up slowly. My hands started shaking immediately. Victor. Of course. At that exact moment, Lauren walked into the bathroom doorway. The second she saw the bracelet in my hand, her face went pale. Daniel. I stared at her. When did he give you this? It's not what you think. I actually laughed. For real this time. Because people always say that when it's exactly what you think. How stupid do you think I am? Lauren stepped closer carefully. I told him I couldn't accept it. But you brought it home. Tears rolled down her cheeks. I didn't know what to do. You could have thrown it back at him. I was trying not to hurt him. The second she said it, silence swallowed the room. Not hurt him. Not us. Him. That tiny choice of words told me everything. I looked at my wife standing there crying for another man's feelings while holding jewelry I could never afford. And suddenly, I understood the real problem. Victor represented a life without struggle, without exhaustion, without watching every dollar disappear before payday. And no matter how hard I worked, I could never compete with that fantasy. I placed the bracelet back on the counter carefully. Then I looked directly at Lauren and quietly asked the question I'd been terrified to say out loud. If he asked you to leave with him, would you go? Lauren didn't answer my question right away. That terrified me more than if she had simply said yes. She stood there crying softly in our bathroom while the diamond bracelet sparkled under the light between us like physical proof of everything falling apart. Finally, she whispered, I don't know. I nodded slowly, because deep down, I already knew that was the truth. Not yes, not no, just uncertainty. And uncertainty inside a marriage is poison. The next morning, I left for the warehouse before sunrise without saying goodbye. For the first time in 15 years, I didn't kiss my wife before work. That realization haunted me all day. At lunch, I sat alone behind the warehouse loading docks eating gas station sandwiches while Arizona heat rolled through the parking lot like waves from an oven. My phone buzzed around noon. Victor. I stared at his name for several seconds before answering. What? His voice stayed calm as always. We need to talk. I almost hung up immediately. Instead, I said, about my wife? A pause. Then, yeah. Every muscle in my body tightened. Stay away from her. I tried. That answer caught me off guard. I frowned. What? Victor sighed heavily. You think I wanted this situation? I laughed bitterly. You invited my wife on vacations. I invited both of you. You knew exactly what you were doing. Silence. Then quietly. No. I knew exactly what she was missing. That sentence hit hard because part of me feared he was right. I rubbed my forehead angrily. You don't get to play therapist after sleeping your way into my marriage. We haven't slept together. I froze. What? We kissed once, he admitted. That's it. I didn't know whether to believe him anymore. Part of me wanted him to be lying because anger felt easier than confusion. You expect a medal for restraint? No, he said calmly. I'm telling you because Lauren still loves you. I looked out across the warehouse parking lot feeling suddenly exhausted beyond words. Then why does she look at you like that? Victor stayed silent for a moment before answering honestly. Because I remind her of who she used to be before life became survival. I hated him for understanding her so well. That night when I got home, Lauren was sitting on our bed beside an open suitcase. My stomach dropped instantly. She looked up at me with red, swollen eyes. Please don't panic. How exactly should I react to luggage? Tears rolled down her face immediately. I just need a few days to think. I stared at the suitcase, then at her, then back at the suitcase again. You're leaving. It's temporary. Where are you going? Silence. That told me everything. I laughed quietly under my breath. Unbelievable. Daniel, you're seriously going to his house? Lauren stood up quickly. I need space. With him. I don't know where else to go. The anger finally exploded out of me. What about our son? Her face crumbled immediately. Mason's staying here. So you're just walking out on your family now? I'm trying to figure out my life. You figure out your life by sleeping across the street with some millionaire? I haven't slept with him. The room went dead silent afterward. Because somehow that wasn't even the point anymore. Emotionally, she had already crossed lines neither of us could uncross. At that exact moment, Mason appeared quietly in the hallway holding his Xbox controller. The second he saw Lauren crying beside the suitcase, fear spread across his face. Mom. Every bit of anger inside me collapsed instantly. Children shouldn't see moments like this. Lauren rushed toward him immediately. Hey, baby. Mason looked between both of us nervously. Are you leaving? Nobody answered, and that silence told him everything. His little voice cracked. Did Dad do something bad? That question nearly destroyed me. Lauren burst into tears immediately. No, sweetheart. No. Mason looked at me next. Kids always look at the father when they're scared. Always. Then why are you fighting? I couldn't speak. Because how do you explain emotional betrayal to a 10-year-old boy without breaking his entire understanding of love? Lauren knelt beside him crying. I just need a little time. Mason's eyes filled instantly. Are you coming back? Lauren looked completely shattered. And for the first time since this nightmare started, she didn't seem sure anymore. Lauren didn't leave that night. Not because the marriage was magically saved. Because Mason cried himself to sleep holding onto her arm. That image stayed burned into my mind forever. The next few weeks felt like emotional warfare inside our own house. Lauren unpacked the suitcase, but nothing actually got fixed. We moved around each other carefully, like one wrong sentence could destroy everything permanently. Victor stopped coming over. No more wine by the pool. No more casual conversations across the street. But somehow his absence felt just as heavy as his presence used to. One evening, Mason asked if Victor was mad at us. Neither of us knew what to say. That's the thing nobody tells you about betrayal. It spreads. It touches kids, families, memories. Even ordinary neighborhoods start feeling haunted. A week before Christmas, I came home early from Uber driving because business was slow. As I pulled into the driveway, I saw Victor standing on my porch. Lauren opened the front door before I even got out of the truck. The second she saw me, panic crossed her face. Victor stayed calm. Of course he did. I walked toward them slowly. What's going on? Lauren wiped her eyes quickly. Victor was just leaving. I looked directly at him. Why are you here? For the first time since all this started, he actually looked uncomfortable. Not confident. Not polished. Just tired. I came to say goodbye. That caught me off guard. What? Victor shoved his hands into his coat pockets against the cold desert wind. I sold the house. Silence. Lauren looked stunned too. You're moving? She asked softly. He nodded once. Miami. I stared at him suspiciously. Why? Victor laughed quietly to himself. Because I'm too old to keep destroying people's lives. That answer hit harder than expected. For several seconds, nobody spoke. Then Victor looked directly at me. You know something funny, Daniel? I doubt it. His eyes drifted toward our house. All those years building businesses and making money, he smiled sadly. You think eventually it'll make you happy enough to stop feeling lonely. I crossed my arms. And did it? No. The honesty in his voice surprised me. Victor looked toward Lauren carefully. She doesn't belong with me. Lauren immediately started crying again. I never meant. I know, he interrupted gently. Then he looked back at me. She talked about you constantly. I frowned. What? Even when she was angry at you? Victor smiled weakly. It was always you. That sentence landed somewhere deep inside my chest. Because despite everything, part of me still loved her too. Victor reached into his pocket and pulled out the diamond bracelet. I should have never given her this. He placed it quietly on the porch railing. Then he stepped backward. I hope you two figure it out. And just like that, the man I'd hated for nearly a year walked down my driveway for the last time. Lauren watched him leave silently while tears rolled down her face. When his black Mercedes finally disappeared down the street, the neighborhood suddenly felt strangely quiet. Empty almost. I looked at Lauren standing beside me under the porch light. No makeup, no fancy dress. Just my exhausted wife crying in an old sweater. Do you love him? I asked quietly. Lauren shook her head immediately. No. Then what was all this? Her voice cracked. He made me feel alive when I forgot how. That truth hurt. But I understood it now. Somewhere between bills, stress, overtime shifts, and survival, we had stopped seeing each other as people. We became responsibilities, schedules, problems to manage. And Victor walked into the emptiness between us. Lauren stepped closer slowly. I still love you. I looked at her for a long time before answering honestly. I think I still love you too. She started crying harder. But love's not the problem anymore. I continued quietly. What is? I glanced toward the street where Victor disappeared. Trust. 2 years later, things still weren't perfect. Maybe they never would be. But every Friday night now, no matter how tired I was, I stopped working early. Lauren and I started sitting outside together after Mason went to sleep. No phones. No distractions. Just us talking under the Arizona sky like we used to before life became survival. And sometimes, when warm desert wind moved through the neighborhood and the world finally felt quiet again, Lauren would grab my hand gently, like she was still afraid I might disappear someday. Truthfully, part of me probably already had.